So the question today is, what is fine art photography? Which is a little bit of a minefield all on its own. And I thought I'd kind of discuss some of my ingredients for creative kind of expression. But if you're looking for the magic answer of what is fine art, there's going to be a little bit more involved with you kind of trying to find out how best you can express yourself. And in a journey of some kind, you're going to have to actually define whether you are a photographer shooting images for whatever reason, or you're kind of going more of an artistic route. So I want to look at it in a step-by-step element. But as I said in the beginning, it's kind of a bit of a minefield. And I'm sure if you kind of look around the internet, you'll find a million kind of answers to it. I suppose the first question I have to ask is photography and art by itself. And if I take you back to around 1980, 81, I was studying my advanced kind of school exams. And I was looking at going to art college to do eventually three-dimensional design and things. Really, I was very, very keen in photography, but when I began to apply for universities, for art colleges, as it were, basically I got rejected, and I got rejected because my photography was so dominant compared to my art. Now, going back to the 80s, you were either going to art school or you're going to photographic school. They kind of didn't really merge, and there's a kind of a really grey area, which I talk about in a minute. But as far as the kind of the photography art, as I said, when I was there, I basically, I had to actually explore more of my artistic element. So I got permission from the school and from my parents to go and do life drawing. And that pretty much blew my mind. It kind of changed my whole world. So I'm just around about 17. You've got to be 18 to do life drawing as a rule. But I needed an entry kind of level to be able to get into art school. And they felt that I should actually just go every single week, a couple of times a week, and basically just draw, paint, to build up the portfolio and to kind of do what they wanted me to do in art college, was to draw and paint, as it were. So it's kind of very confusing when you're a kind of a young kid, as it were. I wasn't a mature child, loved art, but it was just an expression. I wasn't deep. We had to study history of art as well. And as a non-academic, I really didn't kind of enjoy the history of art. However, it was with the history of art that I soon discovered that we have to take inspiration from somewhere, and then we have to take inspiration from everywhere. And as a kind of a photographer 35 plus years on, I now look back and I go, if it hadn't been for the kind of almost rejection based on the photography, and I needed to become more of an artist to open up the kind of natural expression through pastel paint and whatever medium I wanted, I kind of probably wouldn't be the photographer that I became, as it were. So I needed to take inspiration from somewhere, but I soon realized for me, I was taking inspiration from everywhere. And I kind of began to actually settle into kind of a series of artists, which I'll talk about later on, that really inspired me more and more to kind of follow my own path and do what I wanted to do and things, really. So as far as the kind of the art for art's sake, I discovered that I needed to become a little bit more of an artist then, because that was my kind of path, my career path and everything else. I never thought I was going to be a photographer. At this stage, we've kind of got to look at, what's the difference between photography and fine art. Photography, I think there's a very grey area, like I touched on. In fact, a massive grey area, because of this art for art's sake, which is a saying that I love, because realistically, we shouldn't be trying to impress anybody except ourselves. And I know when we put images into kind of portfolio reviews, photo critiques, photo development, whatever it would be, that kind of somebody has an opinion on it. I mean, the world is full of people with an opinion. Doesn't mean that those people with an opinion have any talent. However, if we're putting our work out there to have an opinion based on it, we have to listen and we have to kind of take what we want from it and kind of learn from it. So the grey area to begin with is, how do we kind of blur those lines between everyday photography and fine art photography? I would say as a portrait photographer, my everyday photography does not really mix in the fine art. It would be more of a creative trying to be fine art, okay? And what I mean by that is that I think fine art takes a lot more development, a lot more thought, a lot more concept. That's some of the ingredients I want to share with you today. But as far as the grey areas, we kind of need to smudge it. So, once upon a time when we're in a busy portrait studio photographing 5, 6, 7 clients a day, families, kids, whatever, we've really got to make sure that in every session we try and be a little bit more creative. We naturally are in it for the money, because it's a career. I mean, my fellowship paper was called Prostitute of a Professional What? Caused a little bit of a discussion. But that's really what I am. I'm a professional photographer. It's the only thing I've ever done. It's the only thing I've basically ever earned money from. So I need to make sure that I am continuing down that path as far as focusing in on, I need to make sure my images can sell. That doesn't mean I want beige images. I don't want to just shoot conveyor belt. I do want to give the client that extra element, every single client coming through the door. It doesn't matter if it's the most amazing looking subject, whether they're old or young, kind of wrinkled or soft skinned, whatever. I want to give everybody their best, or whether it's a hardworking family kind of pulling the kids into the studio to get a shoot done and to make sure that this memory is special to them and it's going to last forever, as it were. And the grey area, I think, for many photographers in the kind of the professional world, it becomes, well, this is what I do for money and this is what I do for myself. I would try and smudge that line as much as I could, and I would encourage my photographers to smudge that line definitely end of the session, because that is what we're employing them to do, is be creative, so not just conveyor belt photographers and things really. So accept that there are some grey areas, and let's find a kind of a way through it. By definition, I looked this up on the web, fine art photography is a genre of photography that prioritizes artistic expression, aesthetics, and the photographer's creative vision over documentary or commercial purposes. Well, we just tackled that. It focuses on creating visually striking images with an emotional or conceptual depth, often using various techniques and styles to convey a message, evoke emotions, or tell a story. Fine art photographs are typically exhibited in galleries, and the medium allows photographers to explore their unique artistic voices and experiment with a wide range of subjects and styles. Okay, so if we break that down, the fine art photography at the top, I've already said, it is about your time. It's about your creative expression, your creative development, and don't worry about the financials. As far as the focusing on the creativity, does it have to be visually striking images? Because, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, no matter what. So what is striking to you could be kind of beige to somebody else, or just kind of rejected. You've got to really find that kind of thing. I would say that emotional, if you can follow your passion and you can put that bit of passion into your photography, you're definitely going to lean into that kind of section there, because you'll then basically start to tell your own little tale. Your own emotions will start to come out, or a story or a concept you're trying to bring to life will hopefully kind of mature through a series of images or projects that you're going to do. As far as fine art photographs are typically exhibited in galleries, I think the new galleries is Instagram. As much as we'd all like to actually have gallery space and sell our fine art photography for millions of pounds, the reality is most of us won't. So we shouldn't stop there because of no monetary gain. Remember kind of paragraph 1. more than commercial purposes. So it's not about how much money we earn from it. This is about a personal development and how we kind of really bring it alive and kind of what suits you. And experimentation goes without saying things. Ultimately, fine art photography is a form of artistic expression where the photographer uses their skills and imagination to create images that transcend more documentation, aiming to provoke thought and emotion in the viewer. Use that if you need something to hang a hat on. As far as myself is concerned, I tend to actually use my more artistic time, my fine art time, into people and human form, mainly based around dance or the nude. That's a personal thing. That doesn't mean that I haven't kind of done a load of fine art, still life stuff. I haven't played around with kind of wacky kind of locations, with kind of spinning the camera, tossing the camera, taking the lens off, doing all the things that we're kind of not supposed to do, but we do because if you want to try it out, photographing, with an open shutter and just letting it go. And as long as we've got an exposure to be able to actually kind of show an image at the end, we've kind of had successful failure. Only you can determine that anyway. What I did, I put together some of my notes from some of the fine art workshops that I used to hold. And I kind of put it into P.A.S.A.P, personal creative vision, artistic intent, subject matter, aesthetics, and then the post-processing. So just so we could kind of condense a 2-day course into 20 minutes, I kind of just chosen these kind of the P.A.S.A.P kind of rules. So first of all, I try and explore and experiment with various techniques and styles to develop more unique personal vision and voice. That's me. Okay, you will do it for other reasons. You might need it for your mental health, where you're basically having to take the camera out and do something other than what you usually do with your the camera, because you need to kind of get away from the everyday scenario. The one thing I enjoyed was taking the camera out in lockdown, and even though I was having to go to the studio as a media company and basically do some work without others around me and everything else, I did find that taking the camera out really helped me. And as soon as we could, we got back into the studio to film and so on with it, to kind of help others kind of rediscover their mind and things. But my focus has always been on expressing my perspective and my emotions, not so much what others are expecting from me. So I mentioned about my fine art kind of photography is based more on the dance or nude, or a combination of both. And by doing that, it allows me to kind of really involve both of my passions, as far as the human form, the figure, and the way it moves and basically transforms itself when somebody starts to change shape through the likes of dance and so on. So these kind of things where we start to join them together. And, I'm sure there's loads of kind of millions of essays out there to do with why photographers or artists use the nude as their kind of muse or whatever it is. But for me, it's about how I bring expressiveness and my perspective through the emotion and everything else. So that has to be the creative vision of what am I trying to do. I do a lot of blur, because I enjoy the almost abstract or the impression of the subject. I discovered by complete fluke, going back about 25 years ago, I was just beginning to play around with more and more 35mm digital. Pretty much I was on the verge of not shooting film again. So this is just after the millennium. And I kind of left the focus off on an autofocus camera at the camera. Now, prior to this, of course, everything I did was focused, i.e. Hasselblad, Mamiya's, 5.4s, whatever they were. I was focusing. So purposely I was making things sharp or unsharp. But I was shooting a nude, and the camera had been left in manual focus mode. And by mistake, it kind of looked like an alien through the lens. And that kind of changed probably the next kind of phase of my kind of artistic fine art photography kind of exploration with dance and nude and everything else with it. So I kind of went through this alien nude kind of times. And when you kind of hear about these, famous artists going through their transitions in colors or time or, shapes, abstract, fine detail, real life, whatever it is, there's always something that kind of makes them go down that route and things. But for me, in the personal creative vision, they've usually been accidental, then have actually taken me down a different path before I come back again. Artistic intent. So fine art photography for me is driven by my creative vision and personal expression. We just touched on that. So we have to start with an idea. And one of the things that you can really kind of benefit from today is the likes of Pinterest or Google, as well as YouTube, of course, to give you such a wide variety of ideas for you to kind of go, I need some creative inspiration today. Can't bring my genie to work or my devil to work. So what can I do? Let's go and find something, and let's start with their idea and develop it so it becomes more of my idea and things, really. But as I mentioned, as far as the artistic intent is concerned, I want to convey the emotion. I want to continue to develop ideas, and I want to develop those ideas further and further. And along the way, I usually create a narrative and a storytelling, perhaps, or a style, which kind of add into the kind of the creative element that can be a series of work. I'm fascinated by architectural doors. Whenever I find myself in a new city, I tend to actually gravitate to doors. It's something that I find fascinating. You would think, get a life mark, and I'm okay with that. But we've got to really explore that artistic kind of vision, and you've got to find something to kind of hang your hat on with it. So for me, try and find something that follows the passion. The subject matter I touched on already. So the fine art photography can encompass a wide range of subject matter: doors, nudes, dances, to name just a few, including abstract, that kind of out of focus element. Polaroid out of focus. I absolutely love that because instantly it's a one-off. That's it. Why I like to take a photograph out of focus if I'm going to do a series of those images now, it's because I'm purposely making it out of focus at capture rather than relying in the post-production to make it out of focus then. So you usually find me playing around with this part of the session is going to be this, then this part of the session is going to be kind of moving on to this style and so on with it. But for me, it usually kind of based itself around a muse. I'm just exploring the idea of a new muse now, in fact, to take me into 24 and 25. And we'll kind of try and explore that with you on the Academy as well. But the choice of subject has to be guided by the idea, your creative vision, and rather than kind of looking at it, can I sell these images or is there going to be any monetary return? I would definitely kind of stay away from that as much as you could. Aesthetics, we talk about that all the time. Really the 7 components are ingrained in me: composition, lighting, exposure, pose, style, storytelling, the post-production. But I like to capture in camera first. So the composition, lighting and color and the pose along the way have to actually all merge with themselves and more dynamic with a strong directive to create the photograph. That's the key thing. So, if it means that you kind of knee-jerk away from your usual composition or your usual use of style or pose, whatever it is, then try that. And I always kind of go into repeat and develop it. It's almost like kind of returning to the same scene, trying to kind of recreate it or redo it. If I was a landscape painter, kind of returning there and painting it again and again and again to actually get that variety. Finally, as far as the kind of post processing, yes, it's digital has replaced my darkroom for almost 25 years now, and so post processing techniques and manipulation are truly personal, and they add to my image. That's the key thing. And as far as the creative vision and the expression that we've talked about a lot, what I've captured in camera has to be where everything starts. And basically from there, we take it to that next level, like we would have done in the darkroom. We have to actually use it. I have to use it, I should say, within my kind of creative process for the fine art photography. So that's kind of touched on it. In the next session, we're going to look at 10 questions that I kind of pulled out from a few of the workshops that I did on fine art photography and things really, and we'll tackle that in the next session.